this is horrible.
Hello there, and welcome to another episode of whatever the hell this show is. I'm going through a rebrand right now, and I don't know what it's going to be called by the time this episode airs, but it's whatever it says on the graphics or the cover for this episode. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. What I want to do on this episode. Oh, and by the way, I'm in my buddy's place. We are working together closely this week. You can see the Christmas trees here. He's upstairs right now recording another podcast episode. He runs a podcast called The Block Hash. It's a really cool podcast. If you're interested in anything to do with blockchain, crypto, that kind of thing, check it out. Really, really good podcast. Highly recommend it. It's called The Block Hash. Now, what I want to talk to you about today is something that I feel I'm very educated about because I've dealt with this for a lot of my life. Now, I'm talking about anxiety. I recently published something on my Instagram, or the Unleash Love Instagram, about whether people suffer from anxiety and panic attacks. And I got a huge response that was overwhelmingly in favor of yes, we do suffer from these attacks, which is, it's awful. It's tragic. And I also suffer from them too. I suffer from social anxiety. So it's a specific type of anxiety. It's an anxiety that you feel when you're too hard on yourself, and you feel like other people are going to notice that you're not what you appear to be. And it's your deepest fear is that people will find out that you can't do what you said you would be able to do, or you aren't going to live up to the expectations. That's probably a better way to describe it. But it's a type of anxiety, and I have my attacks. I have my situations where, emotionally, mentally, I'm very disempowered, and I'm overwhelmed by that fear that things are going to go south quickly. But I get through it. I get through it every time. And there's a few things that I can implement or employ to get me there. And I want to share some of those things with you because I think they apply to, people who are also having just, any other uncategorized type of anxiety or panic attack. It's a terrible experience to go through. You feel very helpless and you feel very vulnerable. And I want my listeners to be empowered to live a higher quality life. And that means being confident, having control, right? Mentally, emotionally, physically, being in control. I've never liked to be out of control. That's why I've never really liked taking hard drugs. I was addicted to alcohol, and I was out of control a lot when I was addicted to alcohol. But, it was a familiar kind of feeling. And I think there's a very clear line that you cross when you're drinking where you lose control. And I think most of the time, especially towards the end, I was quite a functioning alcoholic. So it's a different type of addiction. And I've never liked to feel like I'm out of control. So I think most of you must be, or at least I hope you would feel the same way. Now, when you feel these anxiety attacks, when you have these kinds of situations where you're overwhelmed with emotion, with feeling, with fear, I think the most important thing that we can do is relax. Okay? Now, it's difficult. It's difficult because you have this idea in your mind that it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and you really have to take action now, and the clock's ticking, and that's where the desperation comes in. Now, desperation is a tricky one. The only cure for desperation is to relax, right? So if you don't like that feeling, that intensity, the sweating perhaps, the retting of the skin, or whatever you feel when you get anxious, the heart rate, the uncontrollable thought patterns, you have to be self-aware enough. Okay, so have a conversation with yourself, maybe now or after this episode. Have a heart-to-heart. Get clear on a process. And I'm starting at the beginning of this process for you, which is the things that I do to overcome anything that I experience like this. The first part is to relax. Now, you're in the middle of this emotional whirlwind, and it doesn't feel good. And you're terrified it's going to get worse. And you're terrified that people are going to, I don't know, judge you, perhaps. all right? Or you're terrified you're going to have a heart attack or whatever's going through your mind. But you must recognize it's not going to get better if you resist it. It's going to get worse if you resist it. That's how this works. So the only way through this is to relax. Now, you can only do that if you're self-aware. So that's why you need to have that conversation with yourself. You have to first set some ground rules. Okay, when I have my next attack, if I have my next attack, but let's just say when you have my next attack, what do I need to do? What is the step process that I'm going to agree to in order to quickly get through it and move on, right? Because the most important thing is to let it pass as fast as possible so that you can get back on your feet and you can do whatever it is that you were planning on doing. In my case, it's very, very time sensitive because my anxiety is a social anxiety, which is felt when I'm in the presence of people that I think are judging me, in one way or another, whether it's actively or passively judging me. And for me to be able to operate properly, I have to have this conversation intimately and immediately once I feel any kind of anxiety coming on. So it looks like this, okay? I'm feeling a little anxious right now. I'm starting to feel that I'm losing the control of my uh, of my uh, my emotions. I am starting to believe this lie that I'm not good enough, and I need to get control. And I recognize, and I've had this conversation with myself many times, and I recognize that the only way to get control is to relax. Now, I can still pay attention to someone. I can still be in the moment. I can still be in a presentation and relax. The question is, how self-aware are you? How self-aware can you be when you're having these attacks so that you are always able to steer yourself in the right direction? Without that self-awareness, it's almost impossible. So how do you get self-aware? I mean, that's another question. That's a whole boatload of content. All right. And I would say that I'm working on it just like everybody else. If you have 100% self-awareness, I think that's what they call being enlightened. That's a monk or some kind of guru. It's not easy, but just the ability to notice when you're feeling different is exactly what you need to be able to implement the set of tools in this process to be able to get through it. Okay, so I noticed that I'm feeling overwhelmed. I noticed that my emotional state is changing. I noticed that I'm getting anxious. What do? I breathe. I remember to breathe. I breathe in deep and I breathe out slow. And I start to slow my thoughts. That's one of the most important things, slowing your thoughts down because your thoughts are going 100 miles an hour, 1,000 miles an hour. They're searching for whatever it is that you're scared of, right? Other people's judgment, what your behavior is like. Are they spotting that you're a fake, right? This is what's going through my head. And so you have to slow those thoughts down. You have to gently caress the thoughts, for lack of a better expression. You have to be gentle with your consciousness. And the more gentle you are and the more patient you are, the easier it is for you to slide out of that terrible place and avoid, the situation worsening, the intensity of that feeling, growing. And it takes practice, right? This is another thing that I think I need to mention is that this is a process, right? It's not going to be easy immediately. If this is something that you're hearing for the first time, then you're going to need to practice it. And we shouldn't be scared of failing or of not doing things effectively because it's all a learning curve. And, worst case scenario, right? You're going to feel awful for a while. Worst case scenario, okay, someone's going to know that you have some kind of social anxiety or an anxiety or a depression or whatever it is that you're going through. That's the worst case scenario. But, give people the benefit of the doubt that they recognize we're all human, right? We go through things, we're learning. We all have unique backgrounds and upbringings and traumas and all of that. So I would say believe that no matter what happens, you're going to be all right. That's a really important way to be able to craft this skill of, first of all, recognizing when it's happening. Second of all, calming your mind, calming your body, breathing, regulating things, getting back to center again. That's what it's all about. And when you're there, okay, when you finally got back control, the way that you move forward is you focus, like you meditate on the present moment. What's happening right now? Who's talking to you? What's happening around you? Focused on the moment, focus on the things that are happening, and don't think about the future. Stop yourself. Avoid thinking about the future, the past. Avoid thinking about yourself so much. Focus on what's happening around you. And, there's tricks to do this. I mean, if you're not in a position where you have to respond to people or be in an active discussion, if it's more of a passive kind of anxiety where you're on a bus or something and you just all of a sudden become overwhelmed with this, there are tricks that you can do. Like, for example, one of them, which is quite effective, is to look for a sight, a sound, a smell, and a taste. All right. It's just the sensory experience, and focusing on things that you can tie to a sensory experience in your surrounding. And that breaks you out of that mental process or that mental almost like cycle. Again, coming back to it, it's just really important to focus on this present moment. Meditate. You can practice meditation, even when you're not having these kinds of episodes. You can meditate when you're alone. You can meditate when you're with other people. You can do it anywhere, at home. You can do it from work. You can do it in the airport. You got to be aware of these things and you got to practice them, and you got to, you got to communicate with yourself. You've got to tell yourself, look, the next time this happens, here's the process. Boom, 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 boom. First, you got to be self-aware to the point where you're recognizing your state of mind, your body, your bodily state is changing, and you have to get control. How do you get control? You got to calm down. You got to slow your heartbeat, slow your thought patterns. Not in that order. I think the thought patterns come first, because the thought patterns are what making your heart race. They're what are making your sweat trigger. They're what are making your body start to manifest this fight or flight response. So you got to slow your thoughts, slow your heartbeat, slow your bodily rhythm, your pattern. Start to focus on the present moment, focus on what's happening around you. Use any kind of tricks or tools that you have available to make that process easier. And once you gear in, give yourself some credit, commend yourself, congratulate yourself in your mind. Congratulate yourself, or you can say it verbally. Look, if you're in a position where, you're not in the middle of a conversation, you're not with other people, commend yourself. Tell yourself, congratulations, well done. I did it. I was able to get back control. And then from there, you're back to center. You're back on track again, and you've got that confidence, right? So that's the idea, is that you're building this confidence on the back of your ability to come to center. So let me recap for you, because I think this is really, really important. First is a self-awareness. And you do that by really having a conversation with yourself and setting some rules for when the next time this happens, you're going to go through a process. First, recognize when it's happening. Second, start to slow your mind, your thoughts, and your heart rate, because that is going to intensify as your thoughts start to have this reinforcing effect, right? So You need to slow that down. And the only way you can do that is by being patient and being calm and accepting the situation and not resisting it. You're slowing your body, you're slowing your rhythm, you're bringing your wavelength to a higher level, right? Higher is better, lower is kind of, I guess, in terms of spirituality, in terms of consciousness, a higher frequency is a more, uh, let's say, enlightened frequency. So you're kind of being patient with yourself, being calm, breathing, bringing back your control. Once you've got it, recognize it, congratulate yourself for it. All right. Build some confidence. Oh my God, I was able to do this. Great. Okay. I got it back. I'm in control again. And from there, you can continue. And I think the more times that you're able to do this, the better you get at it. And that's really what is something that I focus on. That's really how I deal with my kinds of anxiety that I feel on a regular basis. I would say I feel it pretty much daily. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And it's one of those things I have to deal with. And until I'm able to get rid of it completely, I think these are the kinds of things that I'm going to be implementing, and I'll be constantly looking for new ways, but it works for me. Hopefully it works for you. I hope that you found this valuable and interesting, and I will be doing something in the same vein, something that will be practical, something that people can relate to, that you can relate to on my next episode. So remember to tune in, and I hope you have an amazing rest of the week. Take care.